So after Saturday's game, a couple of the things that you talked about offensively that you really liked were the shot selection, valuing the ball. Just after how that game ended up, was that game, especially with how you were able to kind of look down low, move that ball around using the posts, is that kind of where you want to see this team identity-wise moving forward, especially on that end of the court?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked how we played on that end of the floor. I thought it was our most complete game on the offensive end. We hit on a lot of the senses, meaning, we were able to get to the rim. We had some pull-up stuff. Obviously, made some threes. Our volume was good. I just thought took a lot of really good shots, made simple basketball plays. I loved how hard we cut it. We were cutting with a purpose, but we're just playing for each other, and that's called basketball. And so I just thought we had a really balanced attack. And then we were able to make, for the most part, we had a couple stretches. We were able to make teams pay at the rim, and then we got to the foul line. We were able to make for us, we did a pretty good job at the foul line. So just kind of really hit on all parts of the floor on the offensive end. I just thought we played super connected and just made simple basketball plays.
To follow up on that, you talked about balance. You kind of you earned a reputation early on in the season as a three-point shooting team with Gabe and Mason and everybody hoisting it. But now, 46 points in the paint against Oklahoma State. How important is it as a team, as an offense, to have balance, to be able to beat teams in multiple ways?
Having balance, I always think is huge. Of course, you're going to have, you got to have some go-to guys, but you got to make teams guard everything. And against Oklahoma State specifically, they're so aggressive, but it appears like the Big 12 is very aggressive. And so you got to be able to see you got to be able to see what's going on below you, and you got to be able to make quick decisions. And it just felt like for a long time, and it didn't help, early in the year when we lost the three centers, we almost kind of had to shoot some three, like a lot of three, because we just didn't have a lot of other things going on, if that made sense. So, and I feel like, it was going so well for a while, that from that respect, it was kind of like, but quite frankly, for me, I didn't necessarily always trust it, right? I've never been a guy that just, shooting 50% of your shots from the three or whatever it is. Now, it's one thing if that's what is there, but I just felt like we started getting quick. You know what I mean? We just were getting quick, and we were just getting it got a little out of hand. And we have you got to play good and winning basketball, and especially when you're on the road, you just can't come down and just launch. You said hoist, same thing, right? And so you got to be aggressive, though. You got to take the ones that are there. I don't want guys playing over the shoulder, but we certainly played in attack mode and made so many of the right plays. And every team has really good defenders, and some have some not so good defenders, and usually the ball can find those guys when you play and make the right play, right? And that's how our teams have always been, and I felt like we really got back to that the other night and used Oklahoma State's aggression against them and made them pay on the back end, because we felt like there'd be seams or openings in the defense as long as we didn't turn it over. And that's what a lot of these teams do, man. They load up, they come after you, and you got to be able to make the right decision and the right play and then make them pay, and that's what we did the other night. And it was great to see the balance, because I do believe this team has a lot of balance and a lot of ways that we can hurt you. I thought, I mentioned Gabe after the game, but all I said, he was plus 32. I'm not going to say it was his best game, but it was clearly one of his best games as a Ute. The plays he made, the right plays, and his decision-making were really, really high level. And it's his first time, where he's really the marked man, if that makes sense, meaning 1A. Right? He's always been a marked man because we haven't had a ton of scoring. Brandon, but then kind of Gabe. Last year, Davon some. And so it's a different type of thing that you're going against, and you're feeling it out too, going in a new league. He's never played in this league, so it was exciting to see that balance, and that's something that we're going to continue to need to have as we push forward.
In these last few weeks, we've really kind of gotten a glimpse of seeing what Jake can do out there for you, and at least you come and see him in some of these post-game interviews and kind of see that maturity that he's got. What's kind of that next step, do you think, for Jake, midway through his sophomore year?
Well, he's first of all, Jake is everything about the team. It's all that matters to him. He wants our team to win. That's all he talks about. How can I impact winning? You know what I mean? Makes winning plays, things that don't show up in a box score. He's a great teammate. Everyone will tell you he's easy to play with. I mean, has 16 points on 5 shots. That's just one example. But he does whatever his job is, that's what he does. And so one of the biggest compliments, I think, I mean, those are huge compliments. But, like, when those 3 guys went down early in the year, because he's super smart and super cerebral, he had to learn the 5, like, offensively. So now you're just completely – all right, the amount of time he spent with Coach Tyler Lawson, like learning sets and what we need to do. And, of course, we couldn't throw him the whole playbook. I mean, that would have been – but, like, he was learning all that. And then he was guarding the 5s a lot. Ezra had guarded as well. So he's just kind of a blender, right? And so then he was getting all these reps at the 5 and the 4. And now he's kind of had to get back into a different rhythm. All summer, he was playing the 3, maybe a little bit of 4. Right, but that's how we were going to play. And so now I feel like he's kind of getting back into that groove of being a 3-man again, so to speak, and knowing what to do and principles and how they're going to guard and how we can kind of expose the other team on the offensive end. And then just with his versatility at 6'9", 6'10", you can put him on a lot of different guys. So the sky's the limit for him. He puts the time in. He works his off, gets extra reps. Communicates on the floor, just impacts winning in a great way.
So last week you talked about how the losing streak was kind of, there was flashes of those moments that you knew that this team had it in them to win a game. How does it feel to finally have that, that first conference win on the records, and now it's not kind of like a thing hanging?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for the guys, but that's certainly after the win. I was just so happy for the players because you go, and this is what we all signed up for. There's the good, the bad, the ugly. People can react when the world's caving in, et cetera, et cetera. Got to have a short memory in this. You got to learn. You got to keep pushing forward. And it was good for us. We needed it. We had our mandatory off day yesterday because now we got 3 games in 8 days or 9 days or whatever it is, and so it is on to the next. And we got to keep playing with force and keep playing with that togetherness. Because obviously it doesn't get any easier. I feel like, we've been living in Utah or Texas here over January at Baylor, at TCU, and at Houston next week. So those are our homes for now. But it was good for the guys. There's no question about it. And it was good to see, over those first 3 games, you could see glimpses. I'm sure people are like, oh, you're out of your mind because I know what the final scores look like. I thought 2 of those 3 games were for sure closer than the score reflected. But the silver lining in those games, too, were I thought our bench played really well. Baylor game, we held our own. Now, granted, you're down whatever, so, how was the other? But I thought our bench really performed well. Our starting lineup, both those games weren't very good. We got off to slow starts. And then specifically the Iowa State game, we clearly had made a real, I felt, jump in a lot of things. It was just we couldn't overcome the turnovers or some of the bad shots.
Looking ahead, TCU on Wednesday. What do you make of the Horned Frogs?
Yeah, I mean, Jamie Dixon's been at this thing a long time and been very successful, and they're. His teams are just always going to really, really good defensively. It's just really difficult to score on these guys. That's how their teams are. A little different feel for us because we've played these guys. And I mean, my first year here, we played them at their place, and then I played them in the Delta Center. And that was that was a really good game. So I think Gabe will have a feel for them, obviously, but points are hard to come by. Like a lot of long possessions, they don't make many mistakes defensively. They make a mess out of the paint. They have great size. They have great physicality. You got to earn everything with these guys. They're just very, very, very sound, and they do what they do, and they do it at a high level. A little bit different on the offensive end from years past. I think last year they're number 1 or for sure top 5. I think they might have been number 1 though in scoring and transition. They're not at. They'll still break and score, but they're not quite as that pace. The same thing when we played them 2 years ago. Their point guard was high level. And they were so elite in transition, and he was amazing off of mid-pick and roll. We're going to see a lot of mid-pick and roll. Noah Reynolds I think that's his name. Noah Reynolds, number 21, is leading the Big 12 in scoring. I believe he was the MVP of whatever league Green Bay is in a year ago, and he can get it going. He had a great game against Arizona. I mean, obviously he's leading scorer in the league for a reason. It's hard to do, but he plays at his pace. He just keeps you off balance. He's got every shot in the book. Really crafty. He's just a really crafty guy, and he makes you pay when you make a mistake. And number 3 for them, Alette, is another player. So those two guys are really good playmaking guards, and they play very well off each other. They both play the 1, they both play the 2, and they just get you in attack mode, and they can get it going. And so we're going to have to do a really good job with those guys. And then Jamie Dixon's teams are always really good on the glass. So you've got to neutralize them and hopefully win the rebounding battle, but they're coming. Like, the shot goes up, and they're bringing 3 and 4 guys, and you're going to have to play with a lot of force. And then, of course, on the road, right? Got to handle a road environment, and I'm excited to get back out and see what we can do.
Last week we talked a lot about kind of setting a new standard of play, physicality, toughness, and that sort of thing. After the Iowa State game, and you got that on Saturday against Oklahoma State. With the win, it can be easy to kind of take your foot off the gas. How important is it to keep the pedal to the metal with that?
Yeah, that's got to be who we are. Bottom line, and if you're not doing it, you're not going to see the floor. It's just that simple. So, if guys are going to do that, they'll be sitting over by our coaching staff. But it's just, Steve, I just think a lot about all this stuff, right? And over the years, I think that's what we've always been known for. Maybe not as much, especially when we lost Raleigh last year. We lost a lot of that on the perimeter. Our bigs still played before. Our front line last year did do that, but on the perimeter we weren't. And it's just driving me crazy. And then this year, of course, too, and it's just, I'm done with that. Right? We're playing big boy basketball. We're playing physical with aggression. If you're not going to do it, you ain't playing.
And last one from me, Ezra Smith scored 21 points. Mm-hmm. How beneficial is it, I guess would be the best word, to have an emerging scoring option opposite of Gabe in that sort of manner?
Yeah, he's like all these guys, right? You see what they can do, and then you're trying to fit it all in, and sometimes it's based off who's on the floor that can help or hurt. And I think we're finally figuring some of this out, right, with our team, and it's going to help him because he's got some real natural things that he does at a high level. And but he's fit. I told him this during the game. When I pulled him out one time because I wasn't happy with a couple things, well, mainly one thing. And this is what I love about him. He's really becoming a student of the game and learn. Like he before it wasn't like that. Now he's like, he's learning the game, if that makes sense. Like he's learning how to play and how he can really impact, right? And understand that. Through a different lens than he's ever seen it. This is a guy that started playing basketball, I believe, as a 10th or 11th grader. So he's kind of new to the game, right? And so he's done so much based off of just like sheer talent and athleticism and physicality. He's a strong human being. Like this guy, it's crazy how strong this guy is. It's freaky. But now he's like playing with more purpose and like really understanding at a different level what we're trying to do. And I think that's starting to show. I told him this towards the end of the game on Saturday. Like I said, Ezra, I feel like you had your 2 best practices as a Ute the last 2 days. And I said, would you agree with that? And he looked at me. He was kind of startled I said that. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, yeah, I do agree with that. And so he's just learning not only the execution part of things, but how hard and physical you have to play to be good at this level. The higher you go, man, like it's everything. You don't need to be perfect, but you gotta exert yourself all the time, right? And maximize who you are and what you are. And he's not a finished product by any means where he's gonna go, but man, he's starting to kind of get to that point, and it's always interesting. And nobody knows how this is gonna all play out. Nobody has a crystal ball. But like over the years, I've recruited a decent amount of junior college kids. And so, like it was the old cliche in the coaching circle, right? Well, it takes a junior college to get half a year to kind of figure it out. Well, there you go. You get a bunch of guys, you get new guys and guys that transfers, and some come from different experiences. Some comes from real winning cultures. Some do not. And so you're just trying to get through. And now you get to this time of year where guys should be making, right, those real strides. And so that's how I kind of try to equate it with some of these guys.
One of the guys that you've been especially complimentary over these last couple games, Lawson, and you've always been complimentary on him. How have you seen kind of the learning process with him and with Josh, who knows the Big 12 so well, kind of paid off in these early Big 12 games?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. But first of all, Josh has done a great job with our big guys and teaching them how to play with physicality consistently. And I think you can see Lawson's clearly gotten better. Now, is he, does he have room to grow? Of course he does. He has some really innate talents that don't, like I say all the time about him, that don't show up, but just how he impacts the team in so many respects. With his ability to understand spacing, he's an elite passer. I mean, I knew he had 6 assists the other night. He had 4, like in the first, whatever it was. But he just really sees the game in a good way. The other thing to Lawson's credit, I think, just the self-awareness to understand who he is and accept it. So many times guys, like everybody on the planet wants to score and wants to score a lot of points. You know what I mean? Everybody, it's just natural when you play basketball. Like I always say, football has a built-in advantage. The right guard in football isn't expecting to score touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like he knows what his job is to do, right? But basketball is a little harder. Everybody wants to score. And so I think he's growing with his maturity and self-awareness to understand who he is and what he is, and that he's a dang good, he's a really good player. And so embrace that and own that. And because those things really shine when you do that. And so, but the other piece of it, like you touched on, and Josh has been really good just to help our team with some stuff. And now I think it's sometimes when you talk it's one thing. Some players are, oh yeah, I got it, and you're out the other. Well, now you see it. We're 20% way through the season, right? I mean, 4 of our 20 league games, and now you've been able to see it for real and live it and experience it. And it's like, oh, yeah, he has been saying that for a minute, but I think it's been really good, and those guys have developed a great relationship, and has helped him, in a lot of ways, because obviously Josh has been in the league for a long time.